The story tells what has happened to us, but it's not our identity. Anything prior to this moment is the past. Anything beyond this moment is the future. And so many people operate from a foundation of fear. Fear of repeating the past, fear of not being able to navigate the future.
It's not about becoming, but really remembering, returning home, and uncovering all those beliefs that we acquired along the way. It's important for us to be true and to be honest with ourselves and always speak up from that place of being honest.
You could have given up, but you didn't. You could have stopped believing, but you didn't. You could have kept living their expectations, but you decided to make this life your own. And in turn, you're here.
Hello everyone, today we're meeting AmiLynne Carroll, or Babs. She is a spiritual and trauma coach and also mentor, author and speaker. Hello AmiLynne, thank you for joining us today.
Hi Anna, great to be with you and your listeners wherever they are listening in from.
Thank you. So let's start our conversation by diving into your personal journey. So just tell us more about how did it start for you, the really uncovering of your true passion in life?
Well, I think, that this question, answering it today, I would answer it very differently than I would have 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 15 years ago or even 20 or 30 years ago, because I'm recognizing as we matriculate, as we move through life, our unfolding, our coming home, our becoming is actually a very gradual, everyday process, even in those moments when we don't realize it. And so I think that the universe, source, spirit, God, creator, however you like to refer to divine mind or divine idea, I think my belief is that divine mind is always conspiring to our benefit.
Yeah.
Even in those hardest moments when we would think that there is no sacred being present in our experience. And so when I think back across my story, and I'm going to share this thought really quick before I completely answer your question, because I think so often we get caught up in the story.
Yes.
And the story is important. The story tells what has happened to us, but it's not our identity. And so just that invitation, if you're listening today, and look, we tune in for the stories. And so often we even get caught in the comparison place of our story versus someone else's. But I'm learning that the absolute best story that you could live in is your own. And that it may, our story is the unfolding of what happens to and around us, but it's not our identity. And so as we think about answering that question of what brought me here today and, what does that journey look like, that story includes what for so many would recognize as hardships. I'm one of 15 children, second oldest and the oldest girl. I found out at 35 years old that my older brother and we were the oldest two. We were actually adopted. The other 13 are all biological, but adopted. So at 35, talk about a whole new, set of questions about who I am and where I've come from and those types of things. I've not unlike so many people in today's world, I've battled cancer since I was 21 years old. And as the ebb and flow of that cancer journey unfolded for me, times when I was in recovery, and then, the seeming recurrence of that cancer coming back in a new place with a new experience, kind of led me forward into a place where in 2007, I was given my first expiration date by an expert at the Mayo Clinic. And I got to tell you, I went home and I did exactly what people would expect. I went home and I cried my eyes out for a couple of days.
Yeah.
I was frustrated. I was confused. I was a rule follower. I've always been a rule follower. And how could it possibly be that if I'm following the rules, that now, even through all of the years leading up to that, where I was dealing with cancer and finding a space of recovery and growth and transformation, and then dealing with cancer again, how could it be in this moment that God would give up on me? That spirit, my creator would say, yeah, you're done. And I just couldn't buy into that. Now, just to be really clear and transparent, in 2007, I was in a very huge mix and confusion in my head about my spirituality, about my presence, my purpose, my identity. But what I did was I started reading every spiritual text I could get my hands on. Christian Bible, the Jewish Torah, the Bhagavad Gita, the Quran.
Yeah.
Reaching out to people and asking questions, not from a place of wanting to be a rebellion and prove this doctor wrong or prove something, but from a place of curiosity and discovery and wanting to learn and understand, not at that point necessarily who God was or spirit or source, but who am I? And why am I here? And why is my journey what my journey is? And so it was that very first invitation, which some people call an expiration date. And I now see it as an invitation because it invited me back into my life, not the borrowed beliefs that I had, picked up along the way from those around me. And those borrowed beliefs, we pick those up from people who love us very much, our parents, our teachers, siblings, coworkers, friends, whatever. Those borrowed beliefs come from a time when in that moment, they meet a need and they support us. But no one ever tells us that it's perfectly okay to outgrow a belief or for it to have served its purpose and for our understanding through experience to evolve past a certain set of beliefs or a certain individual belief. And so fast forward to 2022, still battling with cancer, I had a stroke and woke up from that stroke as a quadriplegic. So prior to this, I call myself a recovering AAA personality. If it could be controlled, I was going to control it. If it's going to be, it's up to me. Like everything had to be a certain way, almost to a place where it was a detriment to me. And so waking up, I got the opportunity again to see that as an invitation and to dig even deeper in my own journey in the question of who am I? Whose am I? Why am I here? And to learn that things happen around us for our benefit. Because today, almost 3 years later, I am more clear on who I am and why I'm here. I am so clear on the idea that I am not my body. My body may not function like people want it to, or I want it to, or expect it to, but that doesn't mean that anything is wrong. Different doesn't make things wrong. It just simply makes them different. And so to be invited to live even more deeply and authentically from a place of grace and compassion, both internally and externally facing, it's kind of brought me to a place now where I get to be what I call a travel partner for others who are navigating this human experience in a way where I can help with the speed bumps and the pitfalls and the detours in a way that feels loving and personal versus a cookie cutter. And also, I think the most important thing that I could say in this moment is that no matter who we are, where we are listening in from, you are not broken. You don't need to be fixed. What we get to do is we get to learn to understand the whys we are here. and what our purpose in being here is. And when we're out of alignment with that purpose, things feel like conflict. Conflict feels like something's broken. Nothing's broken, my friends. We don't need to be fixed. We get to remember who we were called to be and begin to live from that place.
Wow, it's beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing with us. And I believe it resonates with a lot of people to really see ourselves as not our bodies, as not our stories. We don't have to identify ourselves with our past, no matter what happened. A lot of people go through trauma experiences in their lives, and then they feel really like attached to those experiences. They feel that there is certain shame and guilt around it, and they can't just go past it, and it creates a certain feeling of stuckness in their life, right? And I feel like we just need to really come back to this present moment, to this aware here and now moment where we can just reconnect with our true essence and to understand that we are beyond to what we see, the appearances in our lives, which is also our body included, right? So I just want you to really elaborate more on how people can become aware and how can they really step in their power by becoming present.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's one that so many of us have either struggled with or continue to struggle from within.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, one of the things that is really important to have a better and a deeper understanding of is that this ability to be present in the current moment, in this present moment, which I call the eternal now.
Yeah.
This moment is all that is, because anything prior to this moment is the past. Anything beyond this moment is the future. And science will tell us that even the most vivid memory that we have is still not exactly how things happened. That the human psyche kind of puts its own spin or twist on it. And that's not meant to be malicious or some sort of a verdict upon, our memories, but that when we think back to how things have happened, our experience of it is a layer on top of what was actually happening. When we think about what the future is going to look like, that's a projection. And so what that conjures in us is fear. And so many people operate from a foundation of fear. Fear of repeating the past, fear of not being able to navigate the future. And so one of the things that I learned along my journey is that in our brains, so physiologically, so we're going to talk physiological for a minute, and we're going to talk about physical. So physiologically, the same brain center, the amygdala, that is used to create imagination is also the control center for fear. So what if fear is nothing more and nothing less than imagination misunderstood?
Right.
Because if it's imagining, we're seeing it, we're putting our own layers on it, our own spin on it, whether it's the past or the future. And so this idea that we can set fear down, because it's just imagination. When we're children, we're encouraged to use our imagination in creating our coloring and, little projects that we're working on. And so often, if you're an only child, you're playing by yourself, or even if you are amongst other children, the imagination is such a highly used muscle, like really strengthening that muscle of imagination. But there comes a point in our upbringing where it almost becomes punitive, the response to our imagination. Nope, you need to learn your reading, writing, and arithmetic. Imagination is for somebody else. Imagination might hold you back in a professional career. Well, if you're an artist of any kind, it's that imagination that's so important. So we almost begin this process of vilifying that imagination. So that's a next natural step, that vilification of imagination now becomes fear. And that fear keeps us from being present, because in this moment, if I am sitting here with you, I cannot be in the last moment, and I cannot be in a future moment.
Right.
And so if we can see it as imagination and recognizing it in that space of imagination, guess what? We get to choose how that imagination unfolds. We are the commander. We are the conductor of that imagination. And we can choose to see it for what it is. Maybe it is a yellow light on a traffic signal. Oftentimes I'll use the analogy of a traffic light. Red, yellow, green. We know what the red is for. We know what the green is for. But I would suggest that the most important light on that traffic signal is the yellow light, because that yellow light invites us to pause. It invites us to assess. Oh, that pause is stopping. Okay, something's changing. Are there cars coming the other way? Are there cars coming from, the directional opposite? Are there cars coming from behind me? Do I need to speed up or slow down based on? So there's so many of things that we're assessing almost in a minute moment, because then the third step is to make a decision. Who am I going to be? What am I going to do? How am I going to show up in the next moment? And so when we're talking about learning to be present, it's about catching ourselves thinking about the past, projecting into the future, and pausing, assessing what is happening around me right now. What do I have to be grateful for? What may be showing up as a lesson? And then that third decision, who do I want to be in this moment? Because we get to make that choice every moment. Sometimes we make a better choice than others. Yeah. We get to make that choice. And that's the thing, that idea of awareness is all about self-accountability. It's about being conscious and aware. So often we hear stories about people, they've driven home and they come in, they put their keys down wherever they go, they kick their shoes off, whatever. And all of a sudden they're like, oh man, I don't even remember the drive home.
Right.
So many of us can relate to that story, that experience. And that's subconscious behavior. And it's important because it got us home safely.
Yes.
But what would that car ride home look like if, when I get in the car and even before I turn on the ignition or put it into gear, I'm deciding that for the next 20 minutes between where I'm at and when I get home, I am going to think about sending blessings to my family or thinking differently about this, that, or the other, because we know that our subconscious is there to guide us through the process. But it's our conscious behavior that is actually what we're called to when we talk about this idea of being aware or being present. And to be present in this moment means to allow ourselves to be present, but to also hold ourselves accountable. And not from a punitive place, not from a disciplinary place of saying, well, man, I committed to being present for 20 minutes and I was present for 5. I'm all with this. I'll never get it. No, my friends, you were present for 5 minutes. Next time we shoot for 6. And it's a gradual process of growing, because I don't believe that our growth is about change. I don't believe we're changing. I believe what we're doing is shedding the layers of the world, those layers of expectation and curriculum and, just all of that. And as we begin to be more present and aware, what we're doing is remembering who we were called to be from our moment of conception So we're not changing. We're simply remembering who we've been all along, but simply forgot along the way.
Yes, definitely. I feel like it's very important for us to bring to our attention that it's not about becoming, but really remembering, returning home, and uncovering all those beliefs that we acquired along the way, which were mostly given to us through our childhood, our bringing. It's what we took on and started to believe in as our identity, as the way to live. But it's not necessarily true. And we don't have to continue living this way. That's the thing. A lot of times people are so attached to like their identity, the roles that they play in the society. And for them, it's hard to let go. They believe it's who they are, and they really like build a life around that identity, around that role, right? And they spend so much time cultivating that, right? And now it's like their ground is shattering when somebody is really pointing out that this might be not true for them, really. And you don't have to continue living this way. But this is a good thing. Like once you realize that you are in charge of really letting that go and start living differently from a different point of view, different awareness of who you might be, right? So it's you discovering yourself and really coming back home. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that something exciting for you to really learn about yourself more? And I also want to address what you just mentioned about the traffic light and the yellow light, specifically how we need to really pause, and we need to do it, I feel like, on a daily basis, a few times a day, to really remind ourselves, just pause and look around and see what's happening with you right now. And those encounters with people or experiences that you are kind of receiving or attracting, I would say it's more of a reflection to you to learn more about yourself, right? If you see it this way, nothing is wrong. Everything is for your benefit. Everything is reminding you and showing you who you are. And isn't that great to really like see it this way and learn more? Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And if we take that one step further, oftentimes when we go on this spiritual journey or a transformative journey, one of the reasons that we will use as an excuse to not do the work on that journey is the fear of losing those people around us. And I just want to remind all of us, myself included, is that we teach people how to treat us. Yeah. And so it might be uncomfortable for them as we begin to remember who we are, because we are going to begin to show up differently. But just like a tree, and we've all heard this analogy, this isn't mine, a tree goes through the seasons. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes in the fall, actually, if it's deciduous, all the time in the fall, a tree will lose its leaves. But that doesn't change who the tree is. What it does is it's preparing for that dormant season so that it can regain that nourishment and in the spring bloom again with new leaves. And so if we think about our life experiences and the people around us as a tree growing and maturing, is that there are going to be people who are in our life for a season. Yeah. Sometimes those seasons are long. Sometimes those seasons are very short. But everyone is here for a season, ourselves included, in other people's experience. But if we try to, you don't see the branches of the tree reaching down and using super glue to put the leaves back on the branches when it falls off in the autumn. We allow those to fall away, because then those leaves take on their next experience in life, which is to become the mulch or to, fertilize the ground or to become a nest for animals in the wintertime. But if we tried to keep those leaves on the branches, then the leaf wouldn't be fully expressed through its full life cycle. And we would be kept stagnant because we were trying to bring back into our experience something whose season had passed. And so when we think about this idea of, again, that transformation, that journey, it's not always easy. And oftentimes we are going to have a shift in relationships around us, but that shift is there not only to benefit us, but also to benefit that other person. Because as we are learning and growing and evolving, if we hold so tightly to them that they can't learn and grow and evolve, then our love for them is actually a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
But if we allow the ebb and flow of people within our experience to be present with us and for us, it shifts the way that transformation unfolds. It shifts the way that journey unfolds, because we're more likely to see those new individuals coming into our life in this new season more readily and not try to push them away, recognizing that it's just simply the ebb and flow. It's the season of relationship that we're in.
Yes, definitely. And I feel like also it's important for us to be true and to be honest with ourselves and always speak up from that place of being honest, because a lot of times we try to really please our people and try to make them like us, right? We don't want to feel abandoned, alone, etc. But like you said, it's just being of disservice if you continue that game and you're not being authentic you, who you should be, and just speaking up honestly from, the place of authenticity and expressing yourself. And that would be the best service that you can do for other people.
Absolutely. You think about, for me, so often when we have conversations like this, it's about the practical takeaway.
Yeah.
Because especially when we're talking about, ethereal or metaphysical ideas and that type of things, like how do I bring that into my day-to-day experience? And so when we talk about this idea of people coming and going in our relationships as we are evolving and growing and remembering who we were called to be all along, in that space, one of the things that you just mentioned is so important, and that's the authenticity.
Yeah.
And sometimes the authenticity in a conversation is knowing that we need to speak with someone that we care about, but not knowing how to go about the conversation. We think we have to know how to have the conversation in order to have the conversation. But what if the opening invitation to a conversation is, and I want to just spend some time with you. And I feel like there's things that we could talk about, but I'm not quite sure how to bring them up.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to just grab some tea with me and let's just share some time and space together? Because I've got some things that are on my heart, and I feel like there's some conflict there.
Mm-hmm.
Would it feel to just sit and have a conversation? And look, some people are going to be like, that's not who you are. They don't get to say that. That's who you have been to them. Remember, we teach people how to treat us.
Yes.
And so when we introduce a new way of being with us, it can be confusing for other people.
Right.
It can be startling, and it can invoke fear. Because if AmiLynne isn't who she's always been, how do I know how to show up for AmiLynne? So it becomes this vicious cycle, but we get to break that cycle. And it's only with authenticity that we can, with grace and humility, break that cycle. We don't have to use a sledgehammer to break unhealthy cycles. We can be gentle in that space. Matter of fact, more often than not, we see a more reciprocal response when we are gracious and loving and authentic than if we go in and think we know how to fix it. And this is what it needs to look like. And how dare you not see it the same way I do? We don't have to have the answers in order to have the conversation. Let the conversation flow genuinely and be willing to hear some hard things about yourself.
Yes.
And when you hear those things, remember the traffic light. Pause. Assess. Is it true? Is there a space where any part of that is true? And who do I want to be in this next moment that honors who I know I truly am, even if it's different than how people have been receiving me in the past? So it's an invitation to conversation. And look, the first time is not so easy, but the next time gets easier and easier and easier. It's just like any other muscle that we exercise. We practicing authenticity, especially in a world where we feel like we've not been very authentic and people aren't used to seeing our authentic self. Practicing that with grace and humility and patience, and willing to let the other person show up exactly where they are also, with no judgment, no need to defend. They are no more broken than you are, and you are not broken. So there's not anything here that needs to be fixed. But we get to learn to be in relationship in new and meaningful and practical ways that will carry those relationships through many more seasons, as opposed to those that we feel like we just have to cut off completely. And there will be those that we need to take a step back from. Not only for our healthy well-being, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, but also for them, to give them that space as you continue to grow and transform and evolve and remember who you are. We always get to remember that everyone else around us is on their own journey as well. And rarely are we ever at the same point on our journey as someone else is on theirs.
Yes, I agree. And also, I feel like the more we are operating for the space of authenticity, the more we invite in others or give them permission to really come into this place where we can meet each other. We can strip away all the masks, all the layers of unnecessary pretending, right? And just be who we are in this space of vulnerability and safety, and open up, and it will facilitate more of the healing process between us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That authenticity is something that we come in. To me, I think of the authenticity as we would think of the innocence of a child.
Yeah.
And so if we can treat ourselves as we would treat a child, first and foremost, because I think life really is based on the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But we get to have a clearer, more authentic understanding of who we are, because I think the golden rule plays out whether we want it to or not. And so often when we see someone treating us differently than we would like, it's because of how we view ourselves and have projected that out. So in fact, people are treating us the way they think we want to be treated. We've allowed it, or we've set the stage for that. We teach people how to treat us. And so when we come back to this idea of the golden rule and we feel like we're always the person that people lean on, or always, I never fit in here, or this, look, set that story down for just a moment. And if you could live authentically from one moment, what would it look like? And in that pause of the yellow light, what would that moment look like? And what do I get to do differently? Remember, different doesn't make it wrong. This isn't about right or wrong.
Yes.
What do I get to do differently so that I can live from a place that is more aligned than I was 10 minutes ago? Even in the space where others may not understand it just yet.
Yes, and also I feel like it's more exhausting to act being a person you're not than being who you are. Just for your own sake, you can just relax into that, and you don't need anybody's permission but yourself only. And you can just start a new way of living and, like you said, setting stage for others to see how you want to be treated. But first you have to treat yourself this way, so they only like see and learn by example of how you treat yourself, and this is your standard, right? So this is something that is non-negotiable, and it's not about somebody else. It's about how you honor and respect yourself, how you love yourself, and it's just is.
Absolutely. And if you want to think about the question, well, how do I start that process? So when we think about the end of our day, most of us go to bed and we think that we are exhausted.
Yeah.
And we're exhausted because we're living from a place of overwhelm of other people's expectations, other people's agenda, other people's curriculum, whether it's our spouse or our children or our boss, our coworkers, our friends, the people at church or synagogue or the ashram, the people at the deli or the grocery store, the car wash, a lot, like everybody has expectations of us. And so at the end of the day, if we are living from a place of just simply trying to keep the people around us happy, we go to bed exhausted. And exhausted is such a detrimental place for us to be physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So tonight, when you go to bed, when you lay your head on your pillow and those thoughts are racing through your head, call time out. Look at the yellow light. Say, what is one thing that I could do tomorrow that would serve me towards who I know I am? And then tomorrow morning, and look, if you need to, jot it down on a Post-it note next to your bed so that when you wake up in the morning, it's right there. Send yourself a text message on your phone if that's whatever is useful, so that in the morning when you wake up, you're remembering that one small shift that you're going to start making important in your experience, so that in the coming days, and look, you're going to fall into old patterns. We're human beings. It's going to happen. But if you can do it just one more time today than you did it yesterday, and one more time the next day, and maybe it's 3 or 4 times in the 4th or 5th day. For me, I use my pause light so many times throughout the day. When it's having conversations that always seem to go left really quickly, before I pick up that phone, I'm pausing. I'm assessing, who do I want to be in the next moment? And then I make a plan as to how I'm going to do that. The more often I call myself to account for that yellow light, pausing, and look, if we can't pause, we can't see the transformation. It's a simple pause. And it can be a moment, it can be 3 minutes, it could be 5 minutes, it could be whatever you have. But start small and let it grow. And then let it serve you. Remember, you're not serving this new way of being. What you're doing is you're being called home. And sometimes being called home means taking the route more than once. Yeah. Practicing and building that muscle of taking care of you from an authentic place, so that as the nights that follow come about, when you lay your head on the pillow, you may be tired, but that tired is a fulfilled tired, not an exhaustion from serving the people around you.
Yes, and it feels differently, actually. It feels like you really did your best and you're proud of who you are. When you look in the mirror, can you say that I'm proud of who I am and I'm doing the best I can at this moment? And everybody can take that pause. And I would also advise it a few times a day to be more practical, to be more efficient, to see the changes that will reflect in the coming days, for you to see really the result of what you're doing. And the more you are aware, the more you really take in on that new way of living and new way of being, really like new state of being that you are, and seeing yourself more than just your body, your role that you're playing, and being more mindful, because the way you are, it affects other people. It creates that ripple effect. And again, you can only be responsible for yourself. You're not responsible for other people or their emotions or the way they see you, but you will see a reflection in those interactions just by you really making that shift within yourself.
Absolutely. And just a gentle reminder in this space of looking in the mirror and seeing our best self is that, I don't know about you, Anna, but for me, my best self in this moment might be different than my best self 10 minutes from now.
Yeah.
It might be different than my best self 10 minutes ago or 5 days from now. In each situation, we get to give ourselves the grace of evolving and growing and transforming, recognizing we're not looking for perfection.
Mm-hmm.
We're working toward progress.
Yeah.
And that progress is what allows us to grow and transform. Again, you notice I'm not saying change, because we're letting go of those layers in that space. But if we expect our best to be the same in every situation, then we don't give ourselves the grace and the space to grow authentically. Because now what we're doing is we're kind of creating this fake it till you can make it. And my challenge with fake it till you can make it is we forget we're faking it. So we can see ourselves where we're at and love ourselves exactly where we are, even recognizing that there are ways and spaces that we wish we were doing things differently. Begin to make those small, practical, meaningful shifts one at a time. Look, Rome wasn't built in a day. We all know the phrase. So we're not going to transform in a day. And that transformation process can be really hard and challenging. Oftentimes, I'll equate that transformation process to the chrysalis stage of a butterfly. In that cocoon, the DNA of that caterpillar that entered that cocoon, it dissolves into this black goo, this just mess of stuff. As that transformation inside the cocoon takes place, and that caterpillar is transforming into a butterfly, keeping in mind that not an ounce of DNA, caterpillar DNA, is present in a butterfly. But without that catalyst, without that chrysalis stage, a butterfly can never take flight. So allow ourselves the grace, the autonomy, the space to be in the chrysalis stage, knowing that the work we're doing is progress, not perfection. And that we can do hard things now. If we take that butterfly analogy just one step further, scientists have proven that a butterfly with 70% of her wings broken or missing, damaged or missing, can still defy gravity and take flight. Friends, if you're listening, you're doing an amazing job exactly where you're at. Yes, there are things that we can each do to transform and grow and evolve, that remembering of who we are. But in this moment, give yourself the grace to know that you are doing amazing. And perfection is not what we're looking for. 70% of her wing damaged or missing, a butterfly can still defy gravity and take flight. You are beautiful right where you are. Allow yourself the space to be beautiful here, while also allowing for the evolution of your experience.
Yes, beautiful. I'm so glad we had that conversation. And for those who would like to connect with you online, how can they find you?
Well, the easiest thing to say is I'm sure you'll have my name spelled properly in the show notes, because all of my socials, everything in the public is my name. So my website is AmiLynne Carroll, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, they're all AmiLynne Carroll. I want to invite your audience, if you just want to come and soak up more of these experiences, we have a twice monthly community that meets on the first and third Tuesdays of the month. And go to my website, sign up, click on, come and visit with us and just sit and let us pour into you. No matter where you are perfect right where you are. And we get to journey together.
Yes, definitely. I'm going to include in show notes so everybody has the right spelling. And as we close today, what would be the final thought for our listeners?
I think that because life can feel so full and oftentimes very lonely, is one of the phrases that I really carry with me, especially in hard moments, is right where I am, God is. And whether it's God, source, creator, spirit, you are not alone. And that source, that infinite mind is present for you, showing up for you, animals, a walk in the park, friends, loved ones. Take that time to take care of you, because without taking care of you, you're not fully taking care of the people around you. And that's not what you're called here to do, be.
Yes, thank you. I hope you enjoy your day.
You too, Anna. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, hit the subscribe button and share it with others. Stay tuned!